everyone. So today's project is going to be called Radial Flowers. And what that means is radial refers to radial symmetry, which means that things are the same not only on both sides, but as we radiate out from our center point, we continue our patterns and we're going to focus on line work too, which is our art idea for today. The other art idea that I wanted to share is actually having to do with the artwork of someone who is a famous glassmaker. His name is Louis Comfort Tiffany, and you're going to see, or maybe you have seen already, the gallery tour of his beautiful, beautiful glasswork. Now, one of the things that I liked best that kind of brought the whole lesson together is that he decides his main idea in a lot of his work, or his main theme, is nature, and especially flowers. So while I was looking at the inspiration for this lesson and I was researching everything, I kept thinking to myself, this really reminds me of something. And then I realized it reminds me of his glass. And I just thought it was so beautiful. So I wanted to link that in and think about that as we work on our lines. Now, this week is going to be focusing on setting up our lines, setting up our outlines, and really making sure that we're making nice patterns and that we're focusing on what we're doing as far as the shape of our lines. And then what we'll focus on next week is adding our finishing touches, adding in as much color as we can, and also even layering in Sharpie or going over everything in Sharpie if you have it available. So let's get started. So I gave you a slide. There's a reference slide. Okay, an example that shows you the style of flowers that we're going to do. Now I'm going to give you a couple of choices. You can choose to focus on just one flower, or you can choose to make a whole garden. That's up to you. Okay, I'll leave that up to you and the amount of time that you have. So I'm going to work in Sharpie today, purple Sharpie, because I like this color, but I would encourage you to work in pencil. That way you can fix any mistakes easily without having to start all over again. So one of the things we're going to look at is our center point, or our focal point. So that's the center of our flower and the shapes that we're going to make. Now, most of the shapes and the lines that, actually the line work that we're focusing on today is going to be using bumpy lines, as you'll see. There's some with some points at the end, but generally we're going to be using bumpy lines. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the flower. I'll show you, because this is my slide here. I'm just going to start with this one right here. And that starts with a circle in the center. So I'm going to create a circle. And then we're going to work on, it almost looks like a sea star, that type of thing. So I'm going to actually work this way so that I can go in the right direction. So I'm going to do a bumpy line like this, bumpy line going out, bumpy line going out, bumpy line, and bumpy line. So that's the beginning of my work. Now I'm going to continue, and now that I have it this way, I'm going to go around from this direction so you can see it even better. So I'm going to go ahead and now I'm going to trace, basically, with a little space around it, the rest of my flower. Okay? So when we say radial, that's what that means. It means that we're starting from an inside shape and radiating or going outward, okay, and continuing layering. And then I'm going to go probably one more time. I think I could fit one more. There we go. So I have my first flower ready and done. So my next flower starts with a dot in the middle. So I'm going to put a little dot. And this one has a little, it's almost similar, but it looks almost more like a peony flower, okay? So we're just going to get a little more bumpy as we create this flower. So I'm gonna just do lots of bumpy lines in the middle, okay? And then what I'll do is I'm going to try and do the same amount of bumpiness as I work my way out. And I'm just going as far as I can without going off the page. Now that's going to be the trick here, is that you don't want to keep on going in one direction. Like I don't want to keep going here because I can't be symmetrical or the same on the top. So once I'm done, that's it. Okay, same with this one. Once I had the most set of lines I could do at the top, I'm also done at the bottom. We want to keep it a round shape overall. And we also, again, want to keep it symmetrical or the same as best we can. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my next flower towards the middle of the page. So I'll start with a little circle. Okay. Now with this one, it's almost like an oval shape as we continue. And this one is a little more tricky. So this one's a little bit of a challenge one. We're going to do a little bit of an oval shape. And it's almost like the end of a rectangle at the end of it. Kind of like that, okay? And then I'm going to continue to do that around and around and around. Okay, and I can continue it going out farther. Then we have ones at the bottom, which are similar shapes, and you can do some of your own too. These are just suggestions, so you have a place to start. Really, anything that has bumpy lines like I'm showing you and that starts from the center and works out is completely fine. So if you want to do something of your own and say start with, let's see, kind of squiggles in the middle like this, something like that, and then you want to go in with some bigger lines like that, you are certainly welcome to do that too. You can make it look almost like a cartoon flower too. Okay, so that'll leave up to you. So again, you can do one of the flowers or you can choose to do a whole entire garden. And then what we'll do is we'll just make sure that our whole page is filled as far as the space. So if you choose to do just one flower, then please just make sure that you start to fill up your space all the way around. If you're doing a garden, you can do just like I did and put one in each space, okay? We do want to leave a little bit of room for a background in case you want to add that in after, okay? So this is our first step for this week, is just taking our time, working on our bumpy lines and our patterns and our radial symmetry, okay? Making sure everything's the same on all sides. And then what we'll do is next week, we'll focus on adding in our color. And like I mentioned, if you choose to, going over everything in Sharpie to make those colors pop. Thanks so much for joining me.